everyone. Have the pleasure to be, having a conversation today with Tyler, who is a co-founder at Hyacinthe, which at its simplest form, Tyler, I'll say, is a coffee shop in downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. But I know there's a lot more to the story and what you're doing in the community, not only there in Western Michigan, but also across the country with the veteran community as well. So Tyler, thanks for taking the time today to kind of have a conversation with me.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to learning more about Puddle Pirate as well.
Perfect. Yeah. So for everyone, Tyler and I kind of kicked this off before hitting the record button of, hey, it's fair. I typically ask the questions in this style, but he's got a lot of questions for me. So I think this will be a good conversation, and I'm sure some of our audience will also know or learn a little bit more about Puddle Pirate. But in the recording right now, we also have the other co-founder, Michael. So Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing well. So Michael, we just kind of jumped in and hit the record button, and we'll kind of go through. But if you wouldn't mind, maybe Tyler and then Michael, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience a little bit, just a background, and then we can kind of get into a little more of what is Hyacinthe and what you're doing in the community.
Michael Hyacinthe. I'm a 8-year U.S. Navy CB veteran. And like many veterans, the transition from the military to civilian life can be tough. And so when I first got out the military, I found myself back in New York City, driving a New York City yellow cab, and then moved to Grand Rapids, finished school. And that's when a family member was killed in combat, and this is when I was first familiarizing myself with Art Prize and seeing the impact that it had on the community. And so we were, at a disconnect. The family was in grief, but outside the community was excited because of art. And so I wanted to see if there's an opportunity to utilize art to reflect, honor, but also to give veterans an opportunity to participate in the freedoms that they've sacrificed for, which is art. And so that's when I reached out to a friend who at that time was a mutual friend with Tyler at Grand Valley State University. And I said, I'm looking for a person who'd be willing to collaborate and join me on this venture to inspire veterans to create. And that's when Tyler and I met, and we first met over a cup of coffee. And it was when we both chatted and shared the disconnect between his world and my world as a veteran. And so, initially we started off by creating designs ourselves and finding local nonprofits to give back to the proceeds of those designs. But at this one initiative, and Tyler will speak a bit more about it, we were showcasing some artwork. We came along and met this quadriplegic Marine who was injured by a sniper's bullet, and the bullet left him speechless, left him unable to move, but he had a passion for t-shirts. So at that moment, I asked him, would you be interested in designing a t-shirt? And through his, at that time, his caretaker, he gave her a set of blinks, which spelled out yes. And so that's what initiated and pivoted from designing t-shirts ourselves to collaborating the veterans with the designers. And so, here we are now. And Tyler is the first designer to collaborate with that Marine who has then gone and passed as a result of his injuries. But we continue to remember him. And his design is the inspiration for what we've done.
Yeah, from my perspective, first meeting Michael over a cup of coffee. I don't come from a military background. I didn't serve. My grandpa served during the Korean War, but he didn't really share much with me about his experience. But at that time, it was in 2010 when Michael and I first met. I had some childhood friends who were serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so I wanted to do something to help support them in whatever way I could. And I was an artist and designer. At that point, I was doing a lot of freelance design and artwork for NBA players, and then soon to become a footwear designer for one of Wolverine Worldwide's brands. And so I was used to creating product. And designs, and kind of seeing the disconnect of like the creative world not really interacting with the military world in Grand Rapids. I felt like there needed to be a bridge of some sort. And as Michael said, we met Corporal Josh Hoffman, and that opportunity for me to be a designer that could kind of share his voice for the first time since his injury. And then to see that impact on him and then his family and friends around him. We had a kind of unveiling party where we showcased his design and had a video, and we captured our collaborative process so that people could kind of be a fly on the wall to see how he was able to kind of tell his story and what his story meant. And as soon as we did that and saw the ripple effect within the community of how people then could go on and tell his story on his behalf when they get asked what their t-shirt means or what the sticker on their laptop means, it really opened the door for that conversation for people to share veteran stories. And so that was in 2011 when we first worked with Corporal Hoffman. And then from there, we needed basically to figure out, okay, how do we continue to share veteran stories through art and design? And so the next year we brought 5 veterans and 5 designers together in Grand Rapids for a week. And that just snowballed, year after year. We would do these hero series projects and then unveil those designs, stories, and products at Art Prize each fall in Grand Rapids. And so that was kind of our, our portfolio of work that we would do each year, and just kind of continued to do that year after year.
Yeah, that's definitely a powerful story and background. And again, I think, Has Heart, I said at the simplest form, for me, it's the coffee shop, which we'll get into a little bit. And this is my favorite travel mug. And in fact, my father uses his every day as well. But you're doing so much more. And if you follow you on Instagram or any other social outlet, you start to see these stories and that sense of purpose. And a lot of it, Michael, you share kind of stemmed from your realization of your experience through Art Prize. And for myself, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. My fiance is from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So for the past couple of years, I spent a good amount of time, obviously, in Grand Rapids until she relocated here. Kind of tell our viewers, though, just high level, a little bit about Art Prize, because I think there is something different in that community that probably helped in these initiatives, especially early on, because of the importance of art and kind of how the community rallies around that in general.
Yeah, it's a great question. I appreciate that. And following my question, I've got a question for you and your girlfriend, Ohio and Michigan. How do you guys get along during that big game?
So to be fair, and I'll tell the audiences here, growing up in Northern Ohio, I actually grew up in a household that were not Buckeye fans. So that makes it a little bit easier.
Okay.
And I went to the University of Cincinnati and Penn State for my master's. So
Nice.
for me, I'm a hockey fan, so it's a little bit easier for me to gravitate towards Michigan and obviously the programs that were up there. So Michael, fair question, and so far so good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just had to throw that one out to you. But yeah, Art Prize is it's a huge community event where individuals from around the country, the world, come and showcase their artwork with the hope that they could be recognized, with the hope that the sweat and tears that they've put into their designs can be finally seen by the masses. And it's just a 3-week constant hustle, constant grind, fighting for every vote. And then eventually the people come together and they select one main prize winner to win, I believe, $250,000 for that particular piece. So it brings a lot of people together. But I would say that, the majority of people who participate, while they want to win, they do it because they recognize art is such a very beautiful and valuable communication tool. And this is their opportunity to share their message. And that's how we've been able to utilize it for our veterans. And we get, people from all around the country who come to visit us year after year from around the country to see the new designs that we've worked with and inspired with the veterans. And so it's an amazing time in Grand Rapids. And we're about 2 to 3 weeks from another amazing time as Art Prize unveils, I believe September 17, 18, Tyler?
Yeah, September 18th. So we'll have a grand opening. This art prize will be different for us. We're going to be screening some films, a couple of them about Has Heart. So we've had actually a documentary made about us this past year by a local filmmaker. So he created about a 12 or 13-minute documentary about Has Heart that shares our story. So we'll be showing that with the public for the first time. We also have a new Hero Series project that we are actually starting tomorrow with a local veteran. And then that same veteran has a documentary about his story that was created a year or two ago that we're going to screen. So we're going to get into the video platform of sharing veteran stories. And Don, you have already contributed towards that through Puddle Pirate and answered kind of our call for support to help us have a projector. So we appreciate the support that you've already shown us and helping us get that equipment, because it is kind of a big next step for us to kind of have that technology inside our shop where we can have visual stories being told in addition to everything that else is on display. So we appreciate your support there. And we're excited to kind of have kind of a new level of storytelling to share veteran stories. And kind of the concept of the coffee shop was a combination of all of our art prize exhibits of years past, where we saw people come together and take the time to look through these veteran stories and experience their artwork. And we saw that and combined that with the fact that all of our veterans and designers first get to know each other over a cup of coffee. That's always the icebreaker and conversation starter. It's also how Michael and I obviously first met. And so we kind of saw those two opportunities to bring people into a space on a daily basis where they can be surrounded by veterans designs, veteran stories, and just kind of create a little bit of a community hub there. It definitely helped that the building that we're in, it's a historic building, is previously unoccupied, owned by the city of Grand Rapids, but it's right on Veterans Memorial Park in the middle of downtown Grand Rapids. So it's the ideal location in terms of its meaning. It's a smaller, intimate building, so it feels cozy as soon as you walk in. But ultimately, to have the Veterans Memorial Park and all those memorials with all those names listed behind us is really the most powerful and meaningful part. And that's why we were able to fundraise for 5 or 6 years and get the funding we needed and support from the community to create that into the Has Heart Cafe.
Yeah, and for those that have not been on site and location, I will attest. I've been there a few times, and it's not just a coffee shop that you go in, grab your coffee, and leave. You give a free cup of coffee to a veteran if they're there. But whether somebody is working behind the counter and is a veteran, or somebody was sitting at the table, that what you're doing to tell stories is real, relevant, and alive, because you just wander around and you start conversations. So I remember there was an individual who served my coffee, and we just got chatting about some of the pieces I believe he put together in the back, at the time was in the back corner. And so he's kind of going through, his experience and such. So it was really cool to see. And for me, obviously, as a veteran, to see what you're doing in a community. And I can't believe I don't think you could have lucked out any more. And you talk about a location, a building. It is a very cool, small, intimate spot, but just the architecture in itself, but where it actually is in the Veteran Memorial Park. So, if anyone's in Western Michigan, definitely check out the location, but probably spend a couple minutes just kind of looking around and seeing some of the work there and getting to know some of the individuals. And Michael, I don't know if you remember, but I introduced myself to you my first time there. I think you were sitting in the corner on your laptop, probably doing some work for the company as well. But Michael, I have to ask, you were a Navy veteran, and obviously the Navy, Coast Guard, maybe you say rivalry, and now here's Puddle Pirate, and you're sitting here interacting with us. Have you heard of the term Puddle Pirate or used it prior to today's meeting?
I have heard of it. Have I used it? No, I've not used it, but I actually have used it. And so I've got some family members that have served in the Coast Guard. So, great comrades, great colleagues, and they do amazing things both, abroad and at home. So, yeah, much respect to our Coast Guards.
Yeah, so I figured it was a fair question to ask. In my time overseas in my deployment, we integrated with the Navy as well. And actually on base, we had a CB tent operation. So it was always fun to kind of wander over there and interact, just again, another service. But, I think for us, and obviously our name, a lot of people use it in a negative form, right? Just Puddle Pirates. And the company was founded by another individual, Chris, who was active duty at the time and kind of going to graphic design school and wanted to kind of create a brand, and said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to actually embrace it and have fun with it, and actually maybe change what the meaning is. And that's ultimately, if you follow us on some of the stories, that's what we're trying to promote. There is a sense of pride that comes with our service that might be a little bit different than others. And, why not embrace it and get the stories out there and really kind of celebrate that as well. But always enjoy, obviously, whether it's Navy, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, those interactions and getting to know fellow veterans. But I think when I think about art and what that actually means to the veteran community, I think, again, the powerful sense of purpose that you're bringing to these individuals and allowing them to tell their story is critical, because I know a lot of individuals that have struggled with some of their military experience and reconnecting in the civilian life and have turned to some form of art, whether it's physical art or music. I have a good buddy of mine that, Army combat veteran, and, that experience obviously is something he still thinks about today. And it is amazing to watch him on a piano, and he just will go for hours, right? That as outlet and the connection that he has to music in general. I can't relate to that. I am not musically inclined. I can't clap on beat. Like, that to me is not my sense of, relief, but that is powerful, and he needs that and wants that. And it's great because he's also sharing that with his kids and his, the rest of his family. And that's a great way for them to connect as well. So again, there is something with art in our community that I think needs embraced a little bit more. Recognize that that's a great outlet. That's a great way to really, again, continue that sense of purpose for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, it's a lot about, giving that creative expression, right? These ideas, these thoughts, and too many times these feelings that we hold inside of us. As we come back, with many, different, conditions, whether it's PTSD, TBI, military sexual trauma for some of our, veterans out there. And so how do we, express those and share our message to, hopefully get help, but also continue to be a service to others. And I think that's what the art does. And through all of the veterans that we've worked with, you'll hear that a lot of their designs are messages that inspire other veterans to seek help, other civilians to, to get the support that they need. So it's an amazing opportunity, and it's one way that we can keep serving is by sharing our story to hopefully inspire others.
Yeah, and I think, Tyler, you might have mentioned it earlier. It's the idea if somebody sees a sticker or a T-shirt, and they ask about it because they don't know what it means, right? That gives that opportunity to either one, the individual that might be a veteran wearing it, to tell the story if they know the story, or if they're the artist, to tell that story. But it's that curiosity that the story lives on. As long as that T-shirt's out there, as long as that sticker's out there. And, for us, we have a design. It's the Cape May Crud Survivor. So for most people looking at that design have no idea what it means. And I get asked all the time, what does that actually mean? It's a chance for me to tell something that all Coasties experienced during boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey. And so it's fun for me to kind of relive those moments and kind of tell some of the scar stories, if you will, being sick in boot camp, and commiserate a little bit. But, it's that curiosity that a civilian that sees that has no idea what it is, or another service member that sees that, it's like, what does that mean? But then we can all relate, and it's that storytelling.
Yeah, I think any icebreaker just to start conversations with people around you is just valuable. And especially in today's world where we're so segmented and separated and kind of controlled by the algorithms that we've kind of created for ourselves. And so when we can kind of have a dialogue and enable people to ask questions and tell their stories and their experiences, I think it really starts to open up people to other people's experiences.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So tell us a little bit more about the documentary.
Yeah. So that was a fun project. We got reached out to maybe 2 years ago. It was actually a veteran that reached out to us that was working with this filmmaker. And so he had come into the space, got coffee, learned about Has Heart through the coffee shop. And the coffee shops, we opened that November 11th, 2023. So Veterans Day was our grand opening a couple of years ago. So the coffee shop itself has only been around for a couple of years, whereas the Has Heart organization, we've been around since 2010, 2011. So it's fun that people are still finding out about us because of the coffee shop. And so that's how he got introduced to what we were doing and saw the impact and the stories and just kind of the history and the portfolio of work that we were creating, and reached out about capturing it. And because we've done a lot of short stories individually with all the different veterans, but we've never really been able to encapsulate the entire collection of stories or the entire story of the organization itself. And so it was really a desire for them to capture our story. And they did it completely pro bono, and spent, a good year of coming in, interviewing Michael and myself, capturing B-roll. We have terabytes of footage that we've collected over the years. So they probably spent the most time just combing through the content and footage we have already created, to kind of piece together a cohesive story. And so that was really just something that came to us, and it was a great opportunity to tell the Has Heart story as a whole, and then start to utilize that as a way to get people introduced to what we're doing and coming into the doors and visiting our online shop. And so we're hoping it will really be a strong, basically, marketing tool for us to get our brand out there and continue creating support so we can continue sharing veteran stories. And as a business owner, as you know, it's not always easy to continue to grow, and product sales are up and down, and online stores and inventory of apparel is a very difficult business. So there's a lot of struggles there, and just costs that come to that. So we're hoping this documentary will kind of bring a little light to that and just make that burden a little bit lesser on our shoulders. So we're showing at Art Prize. September 18th is our grand opening, in which we'll screen that, and then it will be screening every day in the cafe for those 3 weeks. And then it's in a couple different film festivals as well. So we'll figure out a way for people to see it. I'm assuming it will be online at some point. So we'll definitely share it once it is uploaded and streamable. But we're excited to see kind of the story told in that way.
Yeah, we're just excited that they selected us in our story, to connect and share with the public, and for the most part, it's being well received. So we're excited, grateful for just the continued support from the community, and to Tyler's point, we want to continue to share veteran stories and impact them.
Yeah, and you're doing, Tyler, you talk about just the difficulty of running, we'll say, just a business operation, store, merchandise, and again, that promotion. And I think for you, your organization, there's such a sense of purpose, but it is tough. How do you market that? But how do you get it out to individuals out there, right? And so that is something, hopefully your story is kind of hits all these film festivals, and, you can get some positive growth that comes from that. But I think you're doing something right. I'll say my first time in real time in Grand Rapids, when my fiance was like planning out, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to experience? Well, one, she knew I was a veteran. So her first thing said, we have to go to Has Heart. So it was on the top of the priority list to show me around town a little bit, to be able to check out your space. So again, for her to know that and be aware of it, she's heavily involved in our community too. So she knew a little bit about the background. So I think that's pretty cool for what you're already doing.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we're happy to hear that. And yeah, the coffee shop, the 5-star reviews have been beneficial for people coming into town looking for coffee. And so we love it when they just stumble upon us, or, if they can plan ahead, like your wife was able to do, that's even better. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. And part of our long-term growth is to see, can we replicate this elsewhere, in other cities, other states. And so those are some plans that we're trying to figure out, because we do get people from all around the state and the country who have heard about us, and it's part of their mission to come in and see us. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, so that was going to be my one of my questions today is what's next, right? You have a lot going on with our prize coming up, but 5 years down the road, what is kind of the ultimate goal or vision that you see for Hazard?
Yeah, I think it's definitely creating a sustainable model, with our very first coffee shop, and then continuing to support veterans through art and design. And then, we hope to take it, to other cities, other states, potentially partner with, the VFWs or the American Legions. Could we rebrand that, the look that they currently have, where, instead of, alcoholic beverages, it's a cup of coffee and stories that are told on the wall through artwork. Where now the entire public can come in and pay respect and buy a coffee and continue to connect with the veterans. So those are some things that we're planning, but we've got some work to do here, and we're focused on here right now.
Yeah, it's great. In American Legion, VFW, it's a logical next step, but you're right on how do we change the perception, because there is a generational divide that we know happens at those organizations. And that's why other organizations post 9/11 really spurred up the Team Rubicons, the Team Red, White, and Blue. Mission continues to be more purpose driven, right, and telling the stories that way. So again, I think there is opportunity for you to expand to other cities, hopefully to Cleveland someday. Let me know how I can help with that. Definitely familiar with this side of the town, but part of it, I've had conversations like this with other, either active duty coasties looking to grow their side hustle, if you will, or looking to get out of the service and start a business. If you looked back at, it's been 14, 15 years now for Hazard, what would you do? What would you have done differently early on based on what you've learned over the past 10 to 15 years?
It's a great question. I think we've ran a pretty lean collaboration partnership, and so really expanding it, to bring in other individuals. And for the most part, Tyler and I, we've been running this as a side hustle, as a side gig, so. But definitely, and that's what we're trying to build right now, is more of a community around the internal work of what we do. And so I think that's something that we would have probably done sooner. And we're currently preparing right now.
Yeah. And if we would have been able to get more funding early on, that probably would have helped too. Or any funding.
If COVID didn't happen, that would have helped also.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always easy to look back and say, okay, I learned from this. I would have done that different sooner and made it work, right? But again, you guys have a lot of great things happening. And
it doesn't stop with the artwork. Tyler and I are involved in, inspiring veterans to become entrepreneurs. He and I, we work with the Michigan Veterans Entrepreneur Lab, an organization in Grand Valley where we're, inspiring veterans to look at entrepreneurship as a means of their next thing. And so, we're all about recognizing what are the ways that we can do to give veterans their second mission, whether that's art, whether that's entrepreneurship. And we're continuing to plug along.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, obviously being a business owner, a Puddle Pirate, that's a way for me to kind of scratch that itch, right, of next outside of service and still being closely involved. The entrepreneurship aspect is something that, I get emails on of, hey, can we talk for a little bit? I'm looking to start a brand, or I'm looking to start this type of organization. And fortunate for me, I'm a management consultant also on the outside. So I help other business owners. And so I try to give back in that way to some of our followers that are trying to venture down that path as well. And I think, to help understand a little bit more about Puddle Pirate and kind of how it came to be too is, very similar time frame back in 2013. The previous owner, Chris, again, active duty coastie, was on a 378, was going back to school, and graphic design was his outlet. Great artist. And for him, part of his project, he had to create a brand. And obviously that's how Puddle Pirate came about. And really it started as, if you look at a lot of other merchandise for the veteran space, it's a lot of heavy on guns and the stereotypical designs. And he didn't want to be that type of a brand, but more of telling the Coast Guard story with some designs that aren't as obvious to, again, a civilian of what that means, but a fellow coastie would see it and say, I know exactly what that means. And we try to follow suit. So after 10 years, he was ready to move on to the next chapter for him. And I acquired the company back in 2023. And for me, the art side of things, I have a lot of ideas, but I'm not the graphic designer. I'm a business individual that wanted to take the brand to a way that it's more of a lifestyle and telling stories long term, right? Whether it's through our blog, these types of a podcast, connecting with designs with other Coast Guard organizations that we can help raise funds or awareness to, and outside just the traditional unit merch, right, of other nonprofits that are in our space, to be able to give back that way. And for me, there was always, I served from 03 to 2010 in the Coast Guard, and I still have a lot of individuals that ironically are now retiring or just retired from the Coast Guard that I keep close. But for me, I lost one of my good friends and fellow crewmen when I was on my deployment overseas to suicide in 2016. And that kind of was an eye opener. It was tough for me to deal with, but I also knew that I needed to figure out a way to get involved with the veteran space and stay close to that space. And so I led the Cleveland platoon for Mission Continues for 2 years. Again, another way for me to kind of connect with other veterans and kind of give back to the community. Puddle Pirates, that next iteration. I love hearing stories. I love when people email us, good and bad, right? We still get some old coasties, not a big fan of the Puddle Pirate phrase, right? But being able to hear their stories, what they're doing now, and stay close to the Coast Guard space, but veteran community as well. And that again is the goal of Puddle Pirate long term, is just to have that connection and to what you're doing similar in the storytelling aspect, and not just a graphic design on a T-shirt that people are buying.
Yeah, no, you're 100%, and I think that's the difference in what we do to other veteran-owned styled organizations, is how do we tell a different side of the story. It's not necessarily just about the rifle or the that hoorah. We're humans as well, right? And how do we tell that human component? And that's what we intend to do with Has Heart, and it sounds like that's what you're doing with Puddle Pirates. And so
worked with a couple coasties over the years, and it's funny thinking about their designs and their stories. And so yeah, there's definitely some collaboration opportunities, whether it is kind of reviving some of their stories and giving those a new life or new twist, or creating something new. So yeah, a lot of opportunities that we can explore.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love to, we can continue those conversations. And again, it's just hearing what you're trying to accomplish. I try to then think about some of our designs and what sparks stories. So, we've had a couple, not only the Cape May Crud Survivor, I think that was the most engaged post on Facebook, because everyone's telling their stories about getting sick at boot camp. And some say they still have effects of that as well. And fortunate enough, we had an opportunity to be back at Cape May on base, Training Center Cape May, this past May, and interacting with individuals and telling that Cape May Crud story is one fun way to continue. But the others are, we had to design station vacations. So we have a lot of small boat stations, and not all of them are kind of deemed station vacation, but it was just fun to hear people say, hey, I was stationed here. And I would say that was station vacation. It was a low key, not a lot of rescues, but it was in a great community. And, Puddle Pirate Cruise Lines, all about the cutter lifestyle for us. So a lot of individuals, again, sharing their experience, what cutters they were on, their favorite ports of call, and those types. And that's what gives me energy with Puddle Pirate is it's the story. It's not the design that's going on a t-shirt. It's the stories that we can bring to light in our community.
Yeah. And it's funny because Michigan has a unique relationship with the Coast Guard because we're surrounded by water, and growing up north, I would summer up there. My parents are both from there. Now they live up there, but they were in Charlevoix. And so there was a Coast Guard station there for, still is, but there were, larger boats there for a while. And so my interaction and experience of the Coast Guard as a kid growing up was always, related around being up north and in Michigan and things like that. So there's kind of a unique situation that no other branch really has that, I guess, exposure to the civilian population. So whenever we saw Coast Guard, we were usually making sure we had enough life jackets on board and things like that.
That's fair. A lot of those communities, it's all about the search and rescue aspects, and you're hearing them to help mariners and families, in distress out on the water, and especially in the Great Lakes where things can turn up relatively quick, and not always the most experienced boating community like you would see down in the southeast regions in Florida, where you're forced to because of all the shipping traffic and everything that's coming in and out. It's more recreational style and in the Great Lakes.
Yeah. So I'd be curious if there's any stories around that, because that would be a unique perspective for me to hear, like what other coastie stories would have been if they were stationed up north.
Yes, yeah, since you can relate to that. And I've spent a good amount of time, actually just got back from the Glen Arbor, Traverse City area a couple weeks ago. And obviously Traverse City has the air station up there. And so that community is a Coast Guard city, so a designated Coast Guard city. So there's a level of involvement and interaction with the Coast Guard community. And I would say Michigan's also got Grand Haven. That's technically the Coast Guard city, or the first Coast Guard city. So, there's more in Michigan, I think, that people interact with the Coast Guard versus other states across the country that might see the Coast Guard in a different light. And for me, I spent my time at a port security unit. So it was always kind of the running joke. We wore the camo uniforms and not the traditional Coast Guard blue. And we used to say, hey, if something happened or search and rescue, we'd have to call the real Coast Guard because we were trained differently. And, even to the point when we landed in Kuwait and got off the plane, the Army's looking at us saying, what are you guys doing here? And we laughed. We said, we thought we got on a plane to Hawaii, but obviously that's not the case. But, just trying to have fun in life. But that's what I love about the Coast Guard is there's so many different missions out there and jobs that you can explore that are doing things every single day, but involved in the northern Michigans of the world, right? Or Northeast Ohio of the world, not just traditional training sites that other branches may or may not have.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So awesome. Well, Tyler, I definitely appreciate the time today. Any last minute points you want to get out there, ways to connect with HasHeart, anything else for our audience today?
Other than inviting them to join us on Instagram, hasheart.us. That's also our URL, www.hasheart.us. And so interacting with the stories and browsing all of the work that we've done over the past 15 years. And we'd love to continue doing more work. So feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in being a veteran and a part of our Hero Series program. We're always kind of collecting people to see when we can work with them. So. But yeah, feel free to connect and reach out, and we'd love to continue the conversation.
Awesome. And I'll add, if you're ever in the Grand Rapids area, make it a top 1 or 2 places to stop in, grab that cup of coffee, hear some stories, look around. Definitely a unique thing you have going on in that part of the state. So appreciate the time, Tyler, and wishing you the best of luck at our prize.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Dan.
Take care.